It's May 11th, 1989, and another remarkable event is about to be uncovered by Ariel, Rebecca, and Ali, the Retrospectors.
If you ask someone to picture the 1980s, they'll probably think big hair, shoulder pads, camptastic excess, all things amply represented on one of the decade's most potent cultural artifacts, Dynasty, the soapy saga which followed one uber-wealthy family through marriages, murders, and surprisingly frequent bouts of amnesia for 9 seasons before finally coming to an end today in history in 1989.
Yes, this was once the nation's most popular TV show in America, but ratings had been falling for some time, and this was the last of 217 episodes, 8 years into its run. And thank you for calling it Dynasty, Rebecca, rather than Dynasty. I know Americans will be shouting into their phones right now, but I was alive at the time. I didn't understand what was going on or why my parents thought it was funny that these women were just talking about stuff. But I do remember watching this episode in 1989 at the age of 8, and we definitely called it Dynasty. Everyone in Britain called it Dynasty, so sorry, I'm calling it Dynasty too.
I might go with Dynasty, actually, because that's what it was known as over here in Australia. And the reason Dynasty was so dropping off at this stage in its history was, you had these repetitive storytelling tropes. You had over-the-top plot lines that lost credibility. Plus, as well, you had this increasing competition from newer shows. And also the decline of primetime soap operas overall. But the final season had really tried to reinvigorate the show, but it was all a bit too late. And by the end of season 9, you had all of these loose threads that this final episode does not in any way resolve. In fact, it ends on a series of unresolved cliffhangers, including 2 characters, Alexis and Dex, falling off a balcony, falling several stories, and the episode ending without revealing if they survived. The patriarch, Blake, he gets shot, but viewers never saw if he lived or died either. And then Fallon and Christina Carrington, Blake's daughters, become trapped inside a bank vault with no air supply. And the final shot of them desperately pounding on the door also left their fate unknown. You had all of these cliffhangers going on, and none of it was resolved by the end of the episode.
And of course, cliffhangers and things not being resolved at the end of the series was the hallmark of an Aaron Spelling production. Aaron Spelling, veteran producer, TV mogul behind this, who'd also done The Love Boat and Starsky and Hutch and Charlie's Angels. His whole MO was at the end of a series of Dynasty, someone gets shot or pushed over and you don't know if they're going to survive to the next series. The end of the 1985 season saw the Carringtons gathered for a wedding in Moldavia where the ceremony was stormed by terrorists who opened fire on everybody.
Okay, I watched this. I couldn't believe, when I was just reading through the plot, I thought, I have to see this. 25 million Americans tuned in to watch this. So yeah, the whole Carrington family in this fictional European country, the tensions building, you can see like the terrorists crawling over the roof and cutting back to the vows, blah, blah, blah. So these terrorist gunmen burst in open fire. And of course it's super over the top, but it's also so horrifying. And then the final shot is like this zoom out until you eventually see this whole heap of bloody and apparently lifeless guests. And actually, this did backfire because after a whole summer long waiting for the resolution, it turned out that actually all of the main characters somehow survived.
All the principals survived. So this is the thing, right? What it actually is a negotiation tactic with their agents. It's like, okay, you think Joan Collins is worth more money, do you? Well, let's see, because I can kill her. That's basically what Aaron Spelling did. So what it speaks to is the fact that the Dynasty production team didn't know this was the last episode ever. They hadn't been told the show would be axed. Otherwise, they would have resolved it. They wouldn't have left everyone hanging forever, but they didn't know.
Yeah, so Dynasty was originally conceived by ABC as a rival to CBS's water-cooler primetime soap opera at the time, Dallas, which had started airing in 1978.
Which we also watched, and we did pronounce Dallas.
Yes. They didn't, I mean, they didn't really use a whole amount of imagination in this because their drama was also about a wealthy, feuding family of oil tycoons, except they thought, well, we can't set it in Dallas, so we'll set it in Denver. And it was created by the husband and wife writer-producer team, Richard and Esther Shapiro, who hadn't really done anything particularly significant before this point. They'd done episodes of TV, they'd done TV movies. The first season was very much their vision, a little bit more low-key. It was attempting attempting to be, it was a soap opera, but it was a drama as well. It was, supposed to be a little bit more authentic than what it would become. But maybe because of this, it didn't really make a huge splash in the ratings. That all changed when season 2 rolled around with the addition of Joan Collins as the super bitch ex-wife of the show's protagonist, the oil tycoon, Blake Carrington, and particularly her camptastic rivalry with his good girl second wife, Krystle, massively caught on with audience. And this was not just a verbal rivalry. There were many, many catfights. People broke their fingers. People's hair was ripped out. I mean, Joan Collins must have had one of the most physical roles on TV because she wasn't just fighting with Krystle Carrington. She was fighting, with her cousin, with her sister. Anyone who came across the screen, she was going to be on them.
There's a very famous fight where Krystle and Alexis fall into a massive pond and have this extended physical fight where they are pulling each other's hair and sort of comedically slamming each other with handbags and so on. And I think that scene in particular highlights why Dynasty became so popular, because it was kind of opulence on steroids. You had like these big mansions, and that fight took place in the grounds of this massive manor, as well as designer gowns, and they're both wearing these beautiful dresses that get entirely wrecked. Also beautiful with massive shoulder pads, by the way.
For protection in the campaigns.
Right, yeah, it's useful as it turns out. And then these lavish parties, and the costume designer Nolan Miller just became a figurehead for fashion in general. His innovation was to make sure that characters never wore the same outfit twice.
And also tells you about the production value, right? I mean, he had $18,000 an episode to spend on costumes. The cost per episode of making the show was close to $2 million.
Wow.
And so it's funny because now you look at it, and because it's shot in standard definition and it's cut using analog techniques, it actually looks crap. But back then, it was high gloss. For a soap opera, This was a soap opera of the Reagan era. It's the spirit of the age stuff. It's sexy, it's fun, it's excess, it's aspiration. And also, like, pointedly, it's middle-aged. I mean, I think it's one of the things that actually means that 9 years in at this point is looking a bit old hat. But the point is, Joan Collins' character, Stephanie Beacham's character, they are women in their 50s with clearly active, robust sex lives talking about them.
Yeah, and it's this strange balance as well, because while you've got very, very over-the-top stories, long-lost children, people changing their identity through plastic surgery, that kind of thing, but in that weird, jarring way that some shows from the 70s and 80s did, it also felt very comfortable having a go at tackling contemporary issues like homophobia and racism and terrorist attacks on European weddings. Which is very, very odd tonally in a way that we don't really do anymore. But I mean, obviously the show is best remembered for its wild stories, but I have to say the wildest I came across wasn't actually from Dynasty. It was from The Colbys, which was the spin-off that they launched in 1985. This was when Dynasty was the #1 show in the States. And The Colbys followed Fallon, the family's daughter, and her in-laws, the Colbys, who were the Carringtons' somehow even richer rivals. And this was sort of the thing, the main appeal of Dynasty for many viewers was that it was lifestyle porn, escapism. So for The Colbys, they had to make sure we all knew that those protagonists were even richer and even more ostentatious. Nonetheless, it only lasted 2 seasons. I mean, probably a production budget issue, because I know that on Dynasty they were spending $25,000 a week on fresh cut flowers to decorate the set. So I guess for the Colbys you had to spend $50,000. But I mean, the finale of the Colbys probably deserves the retrospective's treatment even more than the finale of Dynasty. It literally ends with Fallon being abducted by aliens. This was the end of the 2nd season, which also proved to be the last season. And so when that show was cancelled, Fallon was then reabsorbed into Dynasty. And luckily, once again, that transition was smoothed over with a helpful bout of amnesia.
Yeah, and it was the trend. It wasn't just the Colbys that went off air in this period as well, but also Falcon Crest and Dallas, although Dynasty was the first to be axed. And it was on the 23rd of May, 12 days after Today in History, that became apparent to the press and then the public when ABC revealed its full lineup, which didn't include Dynasty. That was a decision that was made by Bob Iger, who went on to run Disney, of course, the parent company of ABC. He was the man who took the decision basically because he didn't like Dynasty. I mean, it was still profitable, but he actually took a bow at the press conference as if to say to all of the journalists gathered there, thank you, you're welcome. I've axed this atrocity. And with that in mind, it's quite funny to see what they put on in its place. Doogie Howser MD was one of the shows they replaced it with, which I do remember.
Yeah.
I must say, I don't recall from this moment on, but according to the LA Times write-up, it starred Jackie Mason as a pajama salesman who takes up work at a New York community center. And that sounds fabulous.
That's TV shows.
I am in.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's not like they replaced it, like the actual slot that Dynasty was in. It's not like ABC replaced it with some work of art. It was succeeded by The Young Riders, a drama about the Pony Express, the previous Retrospects episode, starring Stephen Baldwin as Buffalo Bill and Josh Brolin as Wild Bill Hickok. But it did last 3 years, which actually is twice as long as the real-life Pony Express.
Incidentally, by the way, I'd hate to leave you on a cliffhanger in case you're concerned about what happened when Alexis fell from the balcony. It was resolved in a later reunion special that actually what had happened is Alexis did survive her tumble from the balcony by spinning in midair and using Dex's hunky body to break her fall. So everything's fine.
Unfortunately, there were Moldovan terrorists waiting for her there and she gunned her down.
No, it's fine because it was all a dream.
Now,
This episode first aired last year exclusively to members of Club Retrospectors.
Join today and unlock a new episode this Sunday.
Patreon.com/retrospectors